What's up again, everybody? Well, as of about 2 to 3 minutes ago, the Bright Lights spoiler season has come to an end, which means we are hurtling towards, maybe even boosting, that's a better connection. We're boosting our way towards pre-release season this weekend, so let's go ahead and go through the entirety of the set and talk about all the cards. Sort of a general review of how this will all function and what you can expect in this set. And in fact, we have like more cards than perhaps ever before this early. I think that's a good thing, including but not limited to the Fabled, which was live pulled on stream out of a box break, which was very, very exciting, very cool. It was last pack magicked. But yeah, settle in because this is going to be a bit of a longer video than I normally do. But we're just going to have a good time and talk about the cards, starting with Master Cog, the quintessential gem and Fabled. In this set, Master Cog is a legendary card. You can only run one. It is a resource card, meaning you cannot block with it. You can only pitch with it. And it says when this is pitched, you may put a Steam counter on an item you control with Crank. And if we go down into the section that is very well organized to all of the item cards in this set, of which there are many, most of them, as you can see, here's 3, and then there's 1, and then the rest of these are just all Crank items. Basically, almost all of the new items are cranked or have the crank keyword, meaning that we can put a Steam counter on them. Is that good? Well, it could probably be fine. This is like I said, this is the quintessential Fabled. It is a card that allows you to play it if you want that extra spice in your deck. If you open it, you could be really happy about it, but you don't have to play this card if you don't have it or if you don't want it. You can find other methods of putting Steam counters on that may have the block ability, but at the same time, this card's going to look incredible in foil, and especially in cold foil. This entire set's going to look incredible in cold foil. So this is like the perfect middle of the line Fabled, in that you don't have to go out and rush out and get it. It's not the Eye of Ophidia. It's not even the Heart of Fjendal. It's just chilling. It's just like it's like Viscerai's like Fabled. You know what I mean? So it seems just fine. Dash IO is a 36 health for intellect mechanologist hero that lets you look at the top of your deck from now until the eternity, which is great. And then once per turn, which is the sad part. I wish it were like you just infinitely do it because my Kano heart would be so happy. But once per turn, you can play a mechanologist item off the top of your deck if it costs 0 or 1. You have to pay 1 extra for it, but that's okay because playing things at instant speed is cool. This also means that you have a 5-card hand, the 4 cards in your hand, and the 1 on top of your deck, which you can basically just play if it's an item. So it's like a conditional 5th card in your hand, which is quite cool. The young version, I think, is going to look incredible, and I also think the young version is actually a cold foil prize or like promo. Maybe it's a participation prize that you get at Worlds this year. So if you're going to Worlds, you might be able to get your hands on that. I think that's the case. Someone fact check me and let me know in a comment below. Pretty sure you can get this in cold foil at Worlds, and I want it because I love this and it makes my heart so happy that we can play at instant speed, and 18 health is pretty cool. Symbiosis Shot seems great. This seems really good. This gun seems really good. First of all, it's a gun, which means it can combo with anything that says gun. Second of all, it allows you to fire for 2 like the normal pistol does, but you can do some really cool, tricky things with it. At the same time, like the only way to load this is to play an item, and so you have to kind of just enter the item first before you can actually fire with it. But at the same time, that's kind of what she wants to do, is bring items off the top of her deck either every turn or, fairly frequently. If you have an item in hand and you play it, you can also just, put a Steam counter on and kind of pass on over. But there's some crazy lines that you can do with this card and cards that we will talk about later when they come up. But Symbiosis Shot, I think, is very cool and definitely worth playing in both of these dashes, particularly because we can do some instant speed shenanigans with it. And you can gain action points off of the instant speed trigger when you play and crank in items. Now, Max is the just straight up aggro hero of the set, though I imagine he's probably got some little combo potential. He straight up just feels like the power hero of the set. He wants to power out just a bunch of damage. Because once per turn action, you can pay 2 and create a hyperdriver token with 2 Steam counters. And you can only do that if you've boosted, but that's kind of what he wants to do. And then hyperdrivers you control get cranked, so you can actually crank out a hyperdriver you make off of his effect. and you don't lose the action point and end your turn on the spot, which is great because it means that you can get a benefit out of them like turn after turn while also continuing the aggression. His young version looks very cool. In fact, one of my best friends in high school looks like this. Ryan, if you're out there, this is you. Congratulations, you're on a Flesh and Blood card. And he has a weapon called Banksy, which is it's just funny that that they went that road. I think this weapon is pretty cool. I think the 1-for-3 attack stat line is pretty neat. The holding it back, you can only activate the attack if you've cranked on the turn, is a bit of a drawback. But I think personally, this is obviously you're going to play this in limited. But personally, I would probably put this aside just to try, some of the bigger guns and just fire those bigger guns out there. For like the one from Dynasty, for example. But to me, this is probably just going to slot in as a really easy fit in. It reminds me a lot, and this is weird, because there were a lot of people coming into this, like the set of Uprising, that were like really down on Searing Emberblade for Fi. This reminds me of Searing Emberblade for Fi. It's probably just going to slot in as Max's weapon, unless we just all, just load up the old big gun. From Dynasty, teclavoson or teclavoson, leave a comment down below which you prefer. Do you prefer teclavoson or teclavoson? Esteemed magnate is just a happy guy who really is just, got a pure soul, very, very loving. He cares about his city very much. He really wants to see the best for it. He's not evil at all, and he says you can play Evos from your banished zone. Evos are a new type of equipment that we will talk about very soon. And they stack on top of bases, and when you stack them up, you get benefits from playing them. They can also just be blocked with like normal cards, and so you can kind of like mix and match, and you can upgrade as you go. You can choose what path to take, but if you end up banishing them off of like boosts or off of other effects, you can play them from your banished zone. And once per turn instant, you pay 3. You can play your next Evo as though it were an instant. So if you banish on your turn, like it comes around to your turn and you've banished an Evo prior to this, you can just pay for it, and that can be like your use of your action point. But if you don't want to do that, you can pay a blue or pay 3 resources, and you can then cover that resource cost of that Evo at instant speed, and then draw a card, and then still continue your turn, which is very expensive but very cool. In some cases, it's not that expensive. It's the cost of a blue, because there are some Evos that are literally just 0 cost Evos. So there is some worlds that we live in for the perhaps natural control hero that can actually be a little bit more aggressive, just like there are with Dash, who perhaps could be a combo hero that can be just a little bit more aggressive as well. But combo is where my heart just lies. I love combo. Teclavoson, the young version, looks like Flake. It is Matt DeMarco on a card. There he is. Teclo Leveler is a dumb weapon, and I don't like it, so I'm moving on. Singularity is a card. Legendary teclavoson specialization. Teclavoson, I'm just going to keep just going back and forth. Now, this is the reason that everyone freaked out today. And if you're watching this tomorrow, then everyone freaked out yesterday. Because this card has a back, which we all kind of guessed, because this is creating a demi-hero. Teclavoson, the Mechropotent. It's like omnipotent, but it's Mechropotent. That doesn't sound as good when I say it that way. It's like the point, it's a play on omnipotent. Can we all agree on this? Okay, so there's some missing stuff. Look, they did I'm going to hide text here because this card was like spoiled beforehand. But we can assume, based on him being a shadow mechanologist demi-hero equipment, Evo, we can assume that Teclavoson here is a shadow, and everything that you transform him from and what he becomes into goes into what would essentially be his soul. Like, those are all the cards that are his soul, because in order to attack for 6 with him, he has 3 intellect, by the way. He replaces your intellect from 4 to 3. But whenever you attack with him, you pay 3, and you have to banish 2 cards from your soul to attack, and you attack for 6. Whenever this attacks a hero, they discard a card. So in other words, if you push into the hero with good old Teclavoson, I'm gonna trigger everybody. I'm just gonna keep going back and forth. they have to discard a card before the blocks are declared. So they're playing at sort of a 3 intellect penalty as well, which is kind of cool. Also, your mech attacks gain go again. Your mech attack action cards, be very specific, because this does not apply to him. He would be a mech attack just straight up, but your action cards gain go again, so that you can kind of string along some like bigger attacks or some smaller attacks, and you don't have to boost for them anymore. Instead, they just have that latent go again. You also get the benefit of this suit being counted as 4 evos, which is really good for later cards. And Battleborn is also a thing. Now, we don't know how he dies yet, but basically if you destroy this, he's dead. So there are some ways that people are like memeing out there on like, hey, you could just blow him up with Buckle, or you can, blow it, like banish him and banish an equipment, that sort of stuff. Yes, those are all ways to kill Teclavoson, the Mechropotent. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like I should say it that way. But at the same time, I think those are like the only ways. If you reduce Battle Worn, and then I don't know, is his life total? We don't know this. Is his life total connected to what your life total was prior? That's what I'm curious about. I'm going to guess that the star means your life total is connected to the life total prior, but don't quote me on that. Either way, this is one of the coolest, like, biggest surprises I think we've seen in Fab history. And I think it's really fun. And I'm very curious to see if this is actually worth playing, because it costs a lot and it takes a lot of setup. It takes a lot of setup, a very large amount of setup. I'll go back to this weapon because I know some people are going to flame me in the comments for it. I think it's fine. If you have an Evo equipped, then you can attack with it. So if you, in the early game, you can't even send the weapon. But of course, you're like sitting at 40, or you're comfortable swinging your big weapons and taking damage. So I guess it's fine. But the Evo equipment makes this, eventually, once you've gotten to 4, the Evo equipment makes this a 3 attack, 1 cost go again. And the go again is the cool part. So you can kind of like weave it into the middle of a turn, or right before like a big chain ender. That's like the powerful part. But to me, it's like you need to see the relevant stat line of this weapon in the mid game. If you have 2 evos, let's assume that it takes you to the mid game to get 2 evos, or if you're lucky, 3 evos. Okay, and this, I guess, perhaps is maybe I'm over or underselling it, however you want to say it, because there are 0 cost evos that you could play and make this weapon more variably good. But if you're sitting at 2 to 3 evos, then this is a 1 cost 2 attack go again. You don't get that 3 attack go again until you actually get to 4 or more evos, and it's really just 4 evos, I guess. You can't really say 4 or more. Can you say 4 or more? I don't know. Either way, it feels fine at the later stages, and you're just super punished for playing this weapon at the early stages. So it strikes me as something you can play, and obviously will play because it's a token, but maybe I'm just undervaluing it in general. And maybe it is good in the long game. You know what is good? Hyper X3. This card is so freaking cool. I want to see this in cold foil extended art. That's what I want. Whenever you banish a hyperdriver from boosting, put it under this. And then once you've gotten 3 hyperdrivers under there, when another one would go under, you just draw a card. So, like, if you're playing Max and you're just like creating hyperdrivers, you can hit this like point where a hyperdriver dies every turn, and you're just drawing a card every turn, and you're not like doing much to actually like sustain this. You're just pitching into his effect and like cranking it. So you're just literally pitching 2 into his effect. So that does mean 1 card ends up being pitched. But if like you build the deck on an axis of blues or like very small pitch ranges, then like drawing a card essentially makes you have 5 and 6 card hands on an aggro deck, and that's really cool. Adaptive Plating is the most confusing card in the world, and I don't know why it exists. Tell me in a comment below. I don't get it. It's a legendary that blocks for 1. It can go wherever I want it to. Like, so yeah, I guess I can give up. I can give up an arm piece for Adaptive Plating. Okay, I get that. Action 0, equip this to another equipment zone. What? Why do I not? Okay, someone's going to say something so brilliant in like the comments down below, and it's going to click, and it's going to make so much sense. But I don't know, why would you equip this to another equipment zone? unless you can equip this from your inventory, but that doesn't, is that what that means? I don't know. I don't know, man. All I do know is that you can block for 3 if you destroy one of your items. And this to me is the, I guess we should talk about galvanize as a keyword. Galvanize is intriguing, but I feel like if you're not max, this is a really expensive cost. Giving up one of your items that you've paid to establish, and then oftentimes maybe paid 1 extra to establish, or paid full price to establish onto the board, and maybe losing your action point as well unless you're cranking it. Just so that this blocks for 3 whenever you want it. That seems worrisome. So to me, this doesn't strike me as something I really want to dive into. But again, I think I'm missing some. Oh, well, clearly I'm missing something. So let me know in a comment below on this one, how you feel about it. And let's talk about the Cogworks base head, chest, arms, and legs. I think these Cogworks equipments are super good. I think they are great. They are commons, and you start the game off with a steam counter on them, and then at instant speed, whenever you want, you can remove a steam counter, shuffle. In this case, the head says shuffle a mechanologist attack action card from your banish zone into your deck. So you can basically shuffle one of your best attacks back into the deck, which is great in limited. You have to have boosted on that turn, and you have to pay 1 for it, but that's pretty solid. And your opponent can't really remove this because it doesn't have like blade break or anything like that, which makes this a fantastic little limited piece. And then you look at this one, you pay 1 and you gain 2. And you do that off after boosting. So basically this nets you 1 resource. It's like a mini, well, it's kind of like a mini furnace, actually, when you think about it. It's like a mini furnace, but it's a mini Teclo Foundry heart in a way, in the common slot, which I think is fantastic. These are like really good cards. The base arms pays 1 and then gives +1, which is fine. It allows you to maybe push a breakpoint with like a yellow that you wouldn't normally be able to push a breakpoint, or a blue that you might not be able to push a breakpoint with. So I think that's really decent overall. And the legs basically just gives you an action point, which is so freaking good. It's so good. All these Cogworks ones, I am so high on for limited. I think these are fantastic, and they are what you want. The base head, the base chest, and the base arms and legs basically all just have blade break, and they are better than nothing. They are all bases, and you need bases to play Evos, because Evos are looking to be played on top of bases in some cases. Like, for example, this Evo Command Center, if you have a base head equipped, then you transform it into that. But otherwise, then you don't. So you actually have to have that written down on the card. And so these having blade break and 1 is solid. In limited formats, this is solid. I mean, it's like literally just an iron rod that you throw out there. And even if you don't have the Evo in your like sealed pool or in your draft pool, you can still block 1 with it on a breakpoint. And then the proto base heads are literally just there to toss in limited, and everyone can play these. So everyone's going to have a full equipment suite. It's just that these cards don't do anything, and they are there to build on top of. Speaking of building on top of, Evo Steel Soul Memory, along with the other Steel Souls, are like the majestic level Evos that you can build into, and probably what you're trying to build into to actually trigger the giant demi-hero. Because when you trigger the demi-hero, you're actually going to transform into this demi-hero. And in order to do that, it will actually trigger the effect on Steel Soul Memory twice. I know this is the case because that's what the card says. Also, this blocks for 3, so you can just straight up block for 3 with it, which is fantastic. It does cost a lot. It costs 4 to do this, but nevertheless, when this transforms from or into an Evo with a different name, your hero gets +1 intellect until the end of the turn. So if you are transforming from an Evo with a different name into Evo Steel Soul Memory, you're getting +1 intellect. Let's just say you go from Evo Circuit Breaker into Evo Steel Soul Memory. Or in this case, it has to be base head equipped. Which is what we were talking about earlier. Let's just say you go proto base head into Evo Steel Soul Memory. You are gaining +1 intellect, and you are essentially a 5 intellect hero. That is really good. That's really, really good. But if you transform from this into the demi-hero, then you trigger that effect twice, and you get +2 intellect. And on that turn, you are going to draw up, by the way, so we go to it, you're going to draw up to 5 because his intellect is 3, and you are going to have a 5. You're going to be a 5 intellect hero for that single turn, which is quite nice, which is quite good. I'm a fan of that. And the same thing goes for here for Evo Steel Soul Processor. If you transform into the big guy himself, you're gaining 3 resources twice. But even if you're just playing this, you're gaining 3 resources. So you can look at this almost like you're paying 4, but you're netting 3 back. This is a 1-cost just card. And yes, you can block with it. It does have temper, so you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not block thrice. I'm telling you why. It will explode. That's why. But this is a really good card. Like, all of these are actually really good cards. If I remember correctly, I think, is this one the one that I don't care too much for? Yeah, this one recurs your attacks. So when you transform this one, and you turn this one into, by the way, transforming means that you stack this on top of the previous ones, which is very important because when you transform into the big guy, you take everything with you. So if, for example, you ended up stacking like the Proto base head onto, where's the other base? The Evo Sentry base head into the Evo Steel Soul base head, and then you transform into the big guy, you take the Steel Soul memory and the other 2, and you put all those under, which gives you the gas that you need to fire off your big guy over and over again, because you have to banish 2 cards from your soul. So keep that in mind. And this allows you to recur an attack action card with 6 attack from your graveyard into your deck, 5th from the top. So if you're triggering this correctly and you're doing this just even once, for example, but you're doing this alongside of like Evo Steel Soul Memory, for example, gaining that 5 intellect, or when you transform into the big guy, then you will actually take a card, put it on the deck, and do it twice, technically, and then you'll draw into that card, which is very cool because you're getting a 5 intellect. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that's how that works. Evo Steel Soul Tower, a 4-cost as well, which transforms and gives you an action point, and actually gives you 2 action points, which means that you can, when you transform into the Singularity from that Evo piece, you can swing twice, just paying 3, banishing 2, paying 3, banishing 2, which is great because the same thing kind of lines up nicely with Evo Steel Soul Processor in that he pays, like this one pays for the swings of the attack. And this entire piece right here sets you up nicely to become the big guy so that you can punch your opponent in the face for a lot of damage. Evo Circuit Breakers are all like really, really good for Max in a lot of respects. I think they're like set up for Max to be like the linchpin for him. And they're all instant speed, which is very good because if you draw into them, then you at least can play them for 0 at instant speed. And they all allow you to transform it along with X amount of hyperdrivers you control to do a thing, which is kind of cool. So for example, when you turn Circuit Breaker on, when you transform your base head into Circuit Breaker and you banish or put X hyperdrivers under it, then you get to prevent X amount of damage that would be dealt to you, and twice of that. So for example, if you wanted to play Oasis Respite in your deck, but you didn't want to play Oasis Respite in your deck, you can play Evo Circuit Breaker. And you can have 2 hyperdrivers out on the field, and then you can jam this down in response to a wildfire play from a Kano. And then this would prevent 4 damage if you put 2 hyperdrivers under. But of course, they could respond, after that resolves, they could respond to this, unlike Oasis, and actually play the game. Can you believe it? You get to play the game as a Kano player against Evo Circuit Breaker instead of against Oasis. You can't play the game against Oasis. You just lose, which is fun and interactive. But against Circuit Breaker, you get to play the game. How fun is that? It's like both players get to make choices. That's fantastic. Also, it says this: whenever you boost, you may destroy a card under this. If you do, shuffle 2 attack action cards from your banish zone to your deck. Very, very cool. Gives you a little recursion in a deck that's definitely going to gas out pretty quick. Evo Atom Breaker, when you boost, you can destroy a card under this. If you do, gain 2 resources. They all, by the way, have the effect of like being able to just say no to damage at instant speed, which I think is very cool. Like very cool design space for a hero that's definitely geared more towards aggro, to be able to kind of like give up some tempo in the sense of like my resources generating. I'm going to slow down on that so that I can stop this damage and then swing back at you. And the face breaker here pushes two attack on top of whatever attack you're sending, which is very cool. It has to go off of the boost, of course. And then a mock breaker says whenever you boost, you can destroy a card under this. If you do, you create a quicken token, so you don't have to boost. In other words, it's like, and this is like a theme with this set, which I think is very cool. We see it here on mock breaker. We see it on the Cogsworks base legs. The legs are all about giving go again. It's very reminiscent of Snapdragon scalers. They all have a different way of doing that, which I think is very cool. Command Center seems, in my opinion, to just fit nicely in a variety of heroes, but I could see this definitely being played both in, where's our guy? Both in teclavoson and also in Dash. If you wanted to play Evos in Dash, you could also play this in Dash if you wanted to play more aggro Dash as well. But this one feels okay because you transform into this paying 3, and you then, once per turn instant, at instant speed, you can destroy a card under this, so the base equipment under this. And then the next weapon attack this turn gets when this hits, draw a card, which is great because we can play at instant speed in multiple occasions. We can pop this at instant speed. We can also play stuff off the top at instant speed with Dash, and that is a very interesting and potent combination. Engine Room allows you to destroy a card, and then the next weapon attack this turn costs 1 less to activate, which doesn't actually end up mattering too much if we are playing the Symbiosis shot for Dash. But if you wanted to play this at like in limited or just straight up with Banksy, it makes it 1 cheaper. As long as you've cranked on the turn, you can send this for free. And then with the Teclo Leveler, you can send it for 1 less. So either that's for 2 or for 0, which does make it quite decent in that respect. And then the other ones involve the weapon as well. Like, for example, destroy a card under this. Your next weapon attack this turn gets +1 attack. So you could send the Leveler for 4, or the big old gun for 3, the Symbiosis shot for 3. You can also send Banksy for 4, which is pretty solid. It's a pretty solid weapon swing. It's almost as good as Talishar, except it doesn't rust away. We need a Talishar that's like all mechanologist. That would be cool. That would have been a good fabled. I'm just a sucker for Talishar. And then finally, we have Evo Thrusters, which actually allows you to attack an additional time with your weapon, which I think is quite cool as well. Now, all of these do have Blade Break, so keep that in mind, but they all also block for 3. So 3 Blade Break is not bad at all. I think that's a very cool like risk-reward trade there. And these are at rare, so you will find them more readily in like a draft scenario or a sealed scenario. But I do like these a good bit. Of course, I think the power really lies in the Majestics, but I think these ones really, for me, sit quite well. I don't know. These are clearly still in the set, but I don't know if you would ever actually like draft. You can draft these, right? These are from like, they were first shown off in the box set that the professors worked along with them in Round the Table, and their effects really just apply in UPF. So like your blaster can target any opposing hero, but Teclo Blaster I don't think was actually in the set. It could be this one. It could definitely be that one, but it's sandwiched between 2 legendaries, so I'm not so sure. Nevertheless, I don't know if these actually live within like limited, or if they're like tucked into the token slot and you just don't play them. I'm not sure. If you know in a comment below, let me know. But all of these are playable. They are 3 cost and they are blues, and they do block for 2. And they can technically be played if Blaster is available to you. But remember, the weapon that we have here is Leveler, not Blaster. So I would imagine that, I guess, Blaster is also in this set as well, like it is in Round the Table. But you can also give +1 to your weapon. So basically, if Blaster is available and live, then several of these, like, for example, Rapid Fire and Scatter Shot are both decent. And then Evo Energy Matrix is decent. And then Tecloscope matters not. But then the base heads for the Evo Sentries are really freaking good in common. Like, these are really good. First of all, they cost 2. They're at red, so the red is the balancing point. They cost 2. That's not bad. But if you just have the base and you find these, they are 2-block battle-worn equipment. Those are legendary block stats. Literally legendaries have that block stat from like WTR, and they're all that way. Every single freaking one. And they all count as base as well. Like these are better than these in a lot of respect because this allows you to continue to modulate up. So for example, we can go base legs like Cogworks base legs or even proto base legs, and then we can build onto that Sentry base legs, and then we can build onto that Steel Soul towers. And then we have 3 things total that we can feed into the big guy wherever he ended up. We can feed 3 different things into him. That's kind of like the game plan if you want to build up to like a big alpha strike turn. And that's what makes these really good in my opinion. I think these are like some of the best evos that we see. They're 2, so they're approachable. You can pay for them more easily. Alongside of like these data mines, these other evos. Now these are not base, so you can't build off of them if you're looking for a base equipment to transform. But this one, these all have instant speed effects that do some other interesting things. These ones feel good for dash as well. So for example, destroy a card under this. So you destroy the base piece. Draw a card, then put a card from your hand on top of your deck. If you're playing as Dash, so if we go up here, you're playing as Dash, she can play the top card of her deck at instant speed. So if you are stuck with an item in your hand that you want to play out at instant speed to like crank and then gain an action point, you can just destroy the base here, swap it out, and play it off the top of your deck, paying for it +1, and then gaining the action point off of the crank. That's really good. And then you look at this one, it says put a steam counter on an item you control with crank so you can keep something around for longer. You just have to give up the bottom thing, the base chest in that case. This one allows you to put an item with 0 cost or 1 cost from your hand just straight up into the arena as if you were just playing it at instant speed, because this is a once per turn instant. You don't have to pay extra for it. You just place it down. That's really good. And then charging rods, 0 cost, get a quicken token. Just straight up gain a quicken token. Like to me, these are what I'm looking for when I'm actually building like the dash list that we could see possibly doing something dash IO. Those are quite solid. And then the final evos we have to talk about. And yes, we're just grinding through all these cards. The final evos. Evo Zoom Calls, 0 cost. If you have a base head equipped, transform into this. And when this is equipped, you can banish a card from your hand if you do draw a card. Why would you want to do that? Well, this fits in a couple of different things. If you banish cards, there are some cards that allow you to go and get something from banished and then play it, like an item, for example. You can also just banish an Evo and then play that Evo at instant speed with teclavoson, which is very cool because that could gain you some block value, or it could even just allow you to kind of stack on top of another piece of equipment more easily or quickly. Or just gain an effect, right? And it draws you a card. So like if there's a card that you just don't need or can't use, or you have like an all red hand and you have to try and draw into resources to try and win the game, this might be a way for you to do that, which is kind of cool. Buzz Hive just gains you a resource when you equip it, and these are at instant speed as well. And keep that in mind. Some of these are at action speed, like this says Mechanologist Action Equipment, Evo base legs. So the Sentry base legs are at action speed. But these like Data Mine and Buzz Hive, these are all at instant speed. So you can just gain a resource on your opponent's turn by equipping this, or you can gain a resource on your own turn in between attacks so you don't break the combat chain by equipping this. Whiz Bang says up to 1 target attack gets +1 attack, which means at instant speed you can just play this and push a breakpoint. And Zipline allows you to gain Go Again. So you're just giving an attack Go Again. I think these are both cool because they're basically combat tricks at instant speed that can be done like in the reaction step or even in the damage resolution. I think they can both be done in damage resolution as well. Tell me if I'm wrong in a comment below, but I'm fairly certain you can go to damage resolution, play both of these after reactions, and give Go Again, and also give +1 so something actually hits. And now we move on to the payoff cards. These are all of the Mechanologist cards that see and like Evos being represented on the board from your side of things. Annihilator Engine is basically just blow up anything defending this card, which is pretty solid. But if you don't have any Evos, this thing's way too expensive. It's a red 6 for 6, which is just absurdly below rate. But the moment that you get to 2 Evos, it's a 3 for 6, which is fine. It's totally fine. And not only that, if you get to 2 Evos, then all of a sudden you're destroying all cards defending it, so including equipment, and you are also, just easily paying for this straight up off of like a single blue. And once you get to 3, this gains overpower, so it's really tough to block. And then once you get to 4, it pushes for a casual 9, so a 3 for 9, which is quite good. So this one's solid. The very, very solid one is Terminator Tank, because Terminator Tank is Command and Conquer for this deck. It is a 6 for 6, but when you have an Evo equipped, it says when this hits a hero, they discard a card. Oh, sorry, this is Pummel. I'm sorry, the next one's Command and Conquer. This one's just Pummel, which is fantastic as well. You don't have to play Pummel, but this one already has Pummel written on it. You could also Pummel this later down the line, because once you have 2 Evos, this is a 3 for 6. And once you have 3, it gets overpower, and once you have 4, it gets it's a 9 for 3, which is super solid. And this one, I think, is perhaps one of the better ones, and of course, War Machine being the best, because this one is Pummel. Because it says once you have an Evo equipped, it's a 6 for 6 that if it hits and your opponent doesn't respect, it blows up their arsenal. And then when you have 2 Evos equipped, it is a 3 for 6. Now, why do I value this mid-game slot more than I did the weapon? Well, let's look at the weapon stats again. It is a 1 for 2 or a 1 for 2 with go again. Okay. And what is this exactly? War Machine, for example? Well, it is either a 3 for 6 that blows up their arsenal, or it's a 3 for 6 that almost guarantee blows up their arsenal, which is quite good. Even like, for example, Annihilator Engine, which just destroys equipment straight up. Like, that's pretty solid. Now, this one has the least utility of the 3, simply because destroying all cards defending this is already going to happen when they block with like a normal card. But destroying equipment, that's where things get nutty. But War Machine being absolutely insane. When you make this a 9 for 3 with overpower and it blows up their arsenal, yeah, this is a big pivot play. But this is what you're playing towards by playing out your Evos, if you're playing the Evo plan on any of these mechanologists. Demolition Protocol is a 3 for 7 just straight up, which means you just play it. Done. Moving on. A 3 for 7, though, that if you have an Evo upgrade, this gets X to removing all Steam counters. So if you have 2 Evos, you get to remove 2 Steam counters. Remove Steam counters from up to 2 equipment, items, or weapons they control. So if you have 1 Evo, which is likely early game, you have like 1 Evo on the board, then you play this, and if it, like when this attacks, you just take a Steam counter off of one of their pieces of equipment, or items, or weapons, and so on and so forth. This one seems fine, but really, this is just great stat. I mean, this is already good stats, right? Like, you play this just vanilla, even without the effect, and then the effect is good in this exact meta, with especially in limited, with all mechanologists running around. Magnetic Protocol is a 3 for 5, so it misses the mark by just a pinch, not being a 3 for 6, but an Evo upgrade that says defending hero must defend with X equipment they control with -1 counters if available and able to, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped. So, in other words, if you have 2 Evos equipped, then your opponent has to defend with 2 equipment that have already blocked before, which is great in this meta, again, because there are several of these that have temper, and you want to pull, where are the temper ones? They're up in the Majestic, there they are, like that have temper, and you want to pull those out and destroy them before your opponent can transform into the big guy, right? And so this allows you to kind of do that in a very solid way. Pulse Wave Protocol is a really fun one because they reveal X cards from their hand, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped, and then you choose action cards with defense less than X, then add it to the chain link. Now, most of the time, this gets most of its value when you have 3 Evos, because you want their defense value to be 3, so that you can basically just force 3 cards to be revealed, and then take like a 2 block that you want to take from them. But obviously, if you hit the pie in the sky 4, then you get full value out of this. Do keep in mind that these are modular in their abilities. So, for example, like removing 1 Steam counter from like something is okay. Making them defend with 1 equipment is solid. Doing this effect with 1 Evo is essentially pointless, so look at this as a 3 for 6, okay? Because they're going to reveal 1 card and then choose an action card with block less than 1, and that's just like not going to happen. So keep this in mind as well, that some of these Evo upgrades and Evo effects aren't that impactful, and you just have to look at the card for what it is as well. And by the way, if we're looking at it for what it is, it's a 3 for 6. That's a yellow that blocks 3. That's pretty decent. Steel Street Reinforcement or Enforcement is a Mechanologist block card. Block cards are new to the game, and you can just basically just chuck them out there, and they dance around like things that say you can't, like Overpower, for example. They dance around Overpower very well, which is a sort of a staple keyword of this set. It says, while this is defending, it gets plus X, where X defense, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped. So in the early game, this card's strictly bad and probably should be pitched. In the late game, this can block for 4 or 5, and that's pretty solid. So this, to me, feels like a very good pitch card. If you have this card, it's a Majestic, so watch out. If you have this card in a limited setting, and you feel like you can go to the late game against your opponent, pitch this, because 1, it pays for whatever you want to do, being a 0 cost, but 2, if you have the Evos to support it, this is a defense reaction style card that can block for 4 without having to pay for it. That's very good. Heavy Artillery is a staple card, in my opinion, in the decks that want to run it, that care about Evos. It's a 3 for 6 that allows your opponent, or forces your opponent, to defend poorly, because it says the defending hero can't defend this with attack action cards with cost less than X, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped. So essentially, they have to have expensive cards just to defend in the late game, and if they don't, you win the game. So Heavy Artillery in every single color is really good. Every single color is really good. The red, obviously, the blue, obviously, because it pays for your 3 for 6s. But even the yellow is fine, because this with 3 Evos means that they have to defend with a 3 cost or greater card, which is just really, really tough. I mean, you basically have to be playing this big stuff and have to have this big stuff accessible to you in limited. Otherwise, you just can't deal with it, because the defending hero can't defend this with an attack that costs less than 3 if you have 3 Evos. Liquid Cooled Mayhem is one of those cool freaking art cards. Like the art on this is really cool looking. It costs 4, which is like off the stat chart. It's not good, but it costs 1 less to play for each Evo you have equipped. So it doesn't really cost 4, because if you've equipped 1 Evo, now it's on rate for the others, and it's a 3 for 6. If you have 2 equipped, it's a 2 for 6. So it's like a CNC without the effect. So that's pretty decent. If you have 3 equipped, it's a 1 for 6, and if you have 4, it's free. We're not looking at the stats for the 4s. We're looking at the 2s and the 3s, and in this case, it's even more important to look at the 1s and the 2s, because this is not a card that you can kind of trade back and forth with your opponent with. This is a card that you have to have invested in Evos for it to be viable, because at that 4 stat line, you're having to keep 2 cards to pitch into this, and therefore it's in your arsenal. It doesn't feel very good. So you need an Evo online at least for this to be viable. But once you have 2, it starts to get really good. So Liquid Cool Mayhem, I think, is going to be pretty decent in limited, as long as you get the Evos. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of just like a block 3, pitch 3 blue that you play. And it's a 4 attack when it's blue, which is still fine. Mechanical Strength is a 3 cost 5 attack, 3 block, and it just gets plus X. So this really scales decently well. So, for example, if you're looking at the 2 Evo, I think, which is what you should do, your baseline is like, I get 2 Evos out. This is a 3 cost 7, which 3 for 7 is pretty decent, pretty solid. Like, we have that in a couple of other cards in this set, and I would run those cards. Is it worth it when it's a 3 for 6? I mean, it's pretty much on point, so you have to have 1 Evo. Otherwise, it's understated. But then you get to the 3 and the 4, and then it's a 3 for 8 and a 3 for 9. You're like, okay, I'll take those. Those are great. But that's the pie in the sky mentality, and you shouldn't really gauge things off of that. Same thing for the yellow and the blue. But again, all of these block really well at blue, and probably should all be played at blue because they have fine aggressive stat lines. And that takes us out of the Evos Matter section and into the items section. So Grinding Gears is a 0 cost crankable item that says this enters the arena with a steam counter, and then of course you blow up the item if you can't take a steam counter off it, which means it can stick around for 2 turns unless you crank it, and then it can stick around for next turn, and that's it. Technically, no, not even that. It would blow up on the next turn. It would stick around for that turn, is what I mean to say. Action costs nothing, takes up your action point though, destroy the top card of your opponent's deck. Target a hero, destroy their top card of their deck. I think this is cool. I don't think it's probably worth playing unless we could run this in rainbow, and unfortunately it's a majestic, so it only comes in blue, and it just doesn't probably have enough utility, but I want it to because I love the idea of blowing up your opponent's deck turn after turn after turn. Very reminiscent to Arachne, just being able to mill the top of your opponent's deck. I think that's very cool, and to me it feels like a fine sort of flavor addition to Mechanologist. It's just the depressing part is that we can't necessarily do this very consistently or a lot because you can only run 3 of these. And so only running 3 makes it a little tough. Prismatic Lens costs 1. Oh, and I should talk about this. Yes, you can play this at instant speed and not take up the action point. And then activating it would take up the action point if you are dash. If you are not dash, this feels really rough to run. Period, end of story. And is dash can be built as a control hero and can try to play for some sort of maybe a combo finish towards the end. I don't know. There's perhaps some things that you can do as a combo deck, which is what I'm really looking forward to. But I don't think this has enough utility for her. Prismatic Lens, though, cost 1. You'd have to pay 2 for this if you're dash, but you can crank it as well. This enters the arena with a steam counter, and then, of course, you destroy it once you can't take a steam counter off it. So it can stick around for the turn you bring it in at instant speed or the turn you play it, and then the next turn that you take off the 1 steam counter for. Unless you crank it, in which case cranking it takes off the steam counter immediately, and basically means you have to use it or lose it that turn, because the next turn, when the turn starts, it's going to explode. But what does it do? Once per turn instant, reveal the top card of your deck, put a Mechanologist item of the same color from Banished on top of your deck. Now, this is a really cool, really tricky play on the dash side of things, because you can play this like from your hand, crank it, instant speed, reveal the top of your deck, show a red, go get a red from your banished zone that you've already used and have banished over the course of the game via some effects, and then put that on top and at instant speed use her ability to go get it and then play it out there. So like Boom Grenade is just like on my mind. I love that card. We're going to talk about it here in a bit. You can go find Boom Grenades from Banished Zone and play them again, which is just cool. So this one I feel like has a bit more utility. You can play it out there, crank it, use its effect immediately. You could play this for really any of the heroes, which I think is really cool about Prismatic Lens. I'm pretty decently high on that card. Quantum Processor. This one is kind of cool as well because it costs 1, and you can play it off the top of your deck as dash. So you can crank it in if you want to, or you can just play it off the top and not burn the action point. But you can gain an action point as dash by cranking it in. And then once per turn instant, destroy it. Put a mech item from your hand into the arena. It has to be 0 or 1 cost, but it basically allows you to just drop it in from your hand without having to pay for it. So you're just paying by playing Quantum Processor. And as dash, you gain an action point as well, which is very cool. And this is the sort of the thing that you have to ask yourself with all of these items. With all of the items, are any of these, is the value there for you to do something powerful to outweigh the fact that they don't block? That's the question that you have to ask yourself as I lean back 45 minutes into this video. Do they give you enough value to not have a block value from their play? And I think that's going to be the sticking point for a lot of these items as they get built into decks and then tried out. But this one has some decent utility. To me, I don't see it yet, but I could just not be seeing it. I mean, it is like one day after the set's been fully revealed. Prismatic Lens, however, I see a lot more flexibility, and so perhaps that one makes the cut into a dash list that you, I don't know, maybe want to play, 15 items, 18 items? A third of your deck at 20 items? It seems a little sketchy, a little scary about blocking. Nevertheless, maybe you don't want to block. Maybe you just want to play out these items once per turn. Stasis Cell is a really cool sideboard card that costs nothing. It pitches for 3, which means you can play it late game. But it also says, action, put this on the bottom of the owner's deck, which means it cycles itself. That's cool. Does not have crank, by the way. But because it's an action that you play this out, you choose an equipment, it can't defend this turn. So if your opponent is like, well, first of all, in limited, if they're playing all the Evos that want to defend, this is a fine way to stymie some of those. But even in like classic constructed, if your opponent is like really reliant on value blocking with equipment, you can bring Stasis Cell into that matchup. You can pop that down, pop the action on it, gain the go again, of course, and just pick one of those value equipments and make your opponent give you cards. I see this as being an interesting play, an interesting like use case. I feel like this one could be really intriguing and possibly a nice little sideboard card. TikTok Clock is a 0 cost that is basically just a bomb. As you can see, it looks like a bomb, it acts like a bomb, it smells like a bomb, it must be a bomb. When a Mechanologist attack action card you control hits a hero, destroy this and up to 2 other items in the arena. So they could be your items, they could be your opponent's items, which makes it really good, or better, I should say, a lot better in limited. Then deal X damage to them, where X is the number of items destroyed this way. Now, I don't know if it counts itself in that, so it could deal a maximum of 3 damage. But if it does, that's cool. Nevertheless, this does feel less than good in not limited. If you're playing against a non-mechanologist hero, now items are starting to kind of ramp up in use, and like we're seeing more and more items, both in Blitz, in Classic Constructed. We're seeing items show up a bit more, so it's gaining in use case, being able to blow up your opponent's stuff. But if you have to give up your own items to trigger this effect to get 3 damage, I feel like it's a little less good and probably not worth playing. But in a world where items are rampant, this is probably just fine and just pretty solid because you're taking away the value from that opponent's item, especially if you're popping like E-pots. Oh man, if you're blowing up E-pots, this feels probably pretty good. Nevertheless, I think right now it doesn't feel as good in Classic Constructed or Blitz, and feels, well, maybe just Classic Constructed. And it feels perhaps a lot better in Limited. Weird card, Fuel Injector. 0 cost blue pitch, fantastic. Instant, don't destroy this. Just put it to the bottom of your deck. Get it later. Not a big deal. Gain a resource. Can we just, okay, look. Is that card just a better version of Master Cog? It's almost, they're not the same thing. They both give you 1 of something. This one gives you a steam counter. Sometimes like the extra turn of something sitting out there and threatening damage is just good. But I feel like Fuel Injector is like maybe the secret fabled of the set, which is kind of funny. I don't know. I think it's a pretty cool card. I actually kind of like this card a lot. The recursive nature makes it kind of nice, but the fact that you can't block with it is always going to be a sticking point. Medkit, same sort of thing. This is a fantastic addition to someone that's trying to gain life and maybe block out, because this is 2 health infinitely that you can gain, but you're giving up the block value. So I don't know. Is this going to be playable in Classic Constructed in like a defensive Tree Frog Dash? Could be. Definitely could be. But it's going to be pretty solid, I would imagine, in Dash in Limited, because you can pay 1 for this at instant speed. Late game, you can like do this at instant speed and not die. Put it to the bottom of your deck. Like you play it at, well, actually, no, you can't do it on instant speed on your opponent's turn. You can only do it on your turn. But you can instant speed it out, I guess, if you wanted to. And then you can actually use your action to gain 2, put it to the bottom of your deck, and kind of keep that train rolling. That could be really interesting. I think it's a pretty decent card. Also a pretty decent card is Steam Canister. Put this on the bottom of your deck. Put a steam counter on an item you control with Crank. This is literally the same. Is this not the stuff? But like, when you pitch it, I mean, that's not too far removed. That's not too far removed right there. I'm just saying. That's pretty close. City of Dreams was built on Steam. Cogworks slogan. Hey, lore video. Now that we're 55 minutes in, hey, if you want to hear me talk about the lore of this set, leave a comment down below. I think this card's fine. At blue, it makes it a lot more valuable. No block is what you always have to consider, but I think it's fine. Then we come to some interesting cards. This is sort of a pseudo cycle. Polarity Reversal Script costs 1. You can crank it so you can gain the action point off of Dash, which is kind of nice. And it says action cards get -1 while defending your mech attack actions. That is quite good, especially if you can give some stuff overpower or dominate and guarantee damage. In like a boost dash, in like an aggro dash, this card seems pretty decent. It seems pretty decent, and it's why it costs 1. Because in dash at instant speed, it costs 2. At the same time, though, this seems pretty solid if you can set up boom grenades on your turn and then threaten some damage. Because it makes your opponent like have way. This is basically Spider's Bite for like 2 turns. Like when you think about it that way, it's like a Spider's Bite activated for 2 turns. That's pretty solid. It applies to non-attacks and attacks. I feel like that's a really good card. Tell me if I'm wrong. Penetration Script costs 1. This enters the arena with a steam counter, and then you can take that off and keep it around for a turn. Your mech attack action cards gain +1. I don't know. I think like maybe this one's the better version because it gives your attacks +1, and this gives your opponent's blocks -1. So maybe this one's just strictly better. Probably is because it also pitches for yellow. Probably strictly better. Let me know in a comment below. Strictly better because this also like this only applies to action cards, so non-attacks and attacks, and gives them -1. Whereas this just applies to your attacks and gives them +1, which means that like defense reactions aren't affected by this, but in a way, defense reactions are affected by penetration script. So that's an interesting little detail. If you're playing aggro dash, that might be the inclusion there. And security stripped, if you're playing like control, so maybe dash or teclavoson, this costs 1. It pitches blue, and it says your mech attack action cards get +1 defense. So you can, with this out on the field, like think of it like channel that sticks for 2 turns. This gives you 4 block cards, like defense reactions, which is kind of cool. I kind of like that. Yeah, I kind of like that a lot. Yeah, because like let's think about that. So like you play it out and you have a steam counter on it, and then you pass and your opponent attacks you and you block for 4 a bunch. And then you take a steam counter off and you like draw up and then you block for 4 a bunch, and then you're back to your turn. Yeah, it's very cool. I like this as in control. And in fact, I built a control dash a little bit and try to mess around with like a construction of that. And this was a card I really liked and I put in there. The protocols here basically affect red, yellow, and blue cards. They are 0 cost, all of them, and at instant speed, you can pay 2 and destroy this, and you can just pull something from graveyard. In this case, you can pull a red, a yellow, and a blue from graveyard into your hand. The important thing is that they go into your hand. If these are played, most likely this is what's getting played is the red one because it pulls something like that you can threaten back into your hand and then play it out there, because you can play this down and crank it to gain the action point and then immediately pop it paying 2 and then go get the thing you want. It's expensive, but you could do it if you wanted to. I don't know if they're going to be played though. To me, they feel a little underwhelming, particularly yellow and blue. Boom Grenade is the best card in the set. It's so cool. It has not left my head for the past, 3 days now that it's been spoiled? It was spoiled on Saturday, so Saturday, Sunday, Monday? I think that's correct. Or was it spoiled on Sunday? I don't know. To me, it's been there all along. I just didn't know it. I felt it deep in my soul. This card's so freaking cool. Off the top of your deck, this is a 1 cost, deal you 4 damage. I love that so much. This card makes me so happy. And you can just play this out there at the end of your turn, set it up for next turn, take the steam counter off, and try to jam it out at your opponent. I mean, like, it just feels really cool. You could crank it and then push damage. Like, if you have Boom Grenade, and you're playing as Max, you can then send, like, a breakpoint attack, and your opponent's, like, fully pot committed to blocking that. Because if they don't, then they're taking, like, Boom Grenade damage over the top. And they have to commit to blocking it. Especially if you send like a 5, they have to commit straight up every which way to blocking it. Otherwise, they're taking all the Boom Grenade damage. And you can crank one of them, and you can crank the other one, and they only survive for that turn. So it's like this really interesting risk reward for like max. But for dash, I feel like you just throw these out there on top, off the top of your deck at instant speed as a combat trick, and it's just so fun. It's just so cool. It's the coolest card in the set, man. Dissolving Shield is a solid like upgrade. It's like a strict upgrade in some respects to one of the old like not is it Dissolution Sphere? I think it's like Dissolution Sphere that basically stopped damage, like one less damage. This is sort of like that because instant speed, remove a steam counter, prevent the next one damage that would be dealt to you. And you have 3 activations of this on the red. So at instant speed, you can play this out, and then at instant speed, you can pop this. And to me, again, this goes back to like how cool Dash is going to be. Being able to play this off the top of the deck and then instant speed defend yourself. Quite nice. Quite nice. And then if you're doing this on your opponent's turn as a combat trick, you don't have to crank it, which means you're coming in with exactly 3 steam counters or 2 steam counters or 1, and you can stop some damage. I feel like there's going to be games that are won and lost off of this being off the top of your opponent's deck, and then they bring it in and they catch you with it thinking that you had lethal. This card has also been living rent-free in my brain. Why? Because I feel like this is what you would want to play if you're playing like tall dash. If you're playing dash that wants to like build up a tall attack that has like overpower and makes it hard for your opponent to deal with so that you can push a boom grenade over. This feels like the type of card that does it, right? Because Hadron Collider comes on in, and then you boost an attack, you pop this, and then it gets plus X, where X is the number of steam counters. So, for example, Hadron Collider comes in with 4 steam counters, and you don't crank it, then, like off the top of your deck, you don't have to crank it to get the action point as a dash. It's just giving +4. But if you do crank it, it's just +3. And so that's really good in like just a max deck. You could play this in max. You could play this out there, crank it, +3 to your next attack after you boost. And you have the capability of kind of going tall in a way that you might not otherwise think. So I like Hadron Collider a lot. Mini Force Field is cool in red because it's essentially an angel. This is a ward 4 in angels, which is kind of nice. If you crank it, it's ward 3 or ward 2 or ward 1, and therefore it's not very worth it. But I think the red one is the most worth it. I had this in a list when I was just first building one of the heroes. I had this in a list in like a defensive dash, just because it feels like your answer and your possibility for Oasis Respite that is also a mechanologist card. I don't know how to feel about Overload Script. I think it's good. I think like if I'm playing Dash, or technically if I'm playing Max, I feel like this is one way to win the game. Like if I'm playing aggressively, this is a win condition into decks that want to block me out. Because I say overpower, and then they have to save their equipment for a turn where I do this, right? Because you give all of your attack action cards overpower. Every single one. So if you have 3 boosts on that turn, that's 3 overpowered attacks. And if they're all breakpoints, you're leaking damage. And that's pretty cool. Or they're giving you equipment, and then you're finding ways to leak damage later. So I feel like I like this card, but I don't know. It feels a little iffy. Megahertz Script also feels really cool because this means you don't have to boost your cards. They just gain go again. And you can sit there for 2 turns not boosting and instead just like throwing your attacks willy-nilly to the wind, saving you like 4 cards in the long run. Like if you're looking at pushing 3 attacks a turn and this sticks for 2 turns, then you can swing. Well, I guess technically it wouldn't stick for 2 turns because you have to crank it, right? So no matter if you're playing this at instant speed on dash and you're playing aggressive dash, then this saves you 4 cards, right? Because you go boost, boost, don't boost, and then you go boost, boost, don't boost, and then it would be like 4 cards that you would have lost through the boosting. But if you play Megahertz Script, you don't boost. You just play, and then you've gained 4 cards in your deck, essentially. So in that case, I feel like this is a really good card. And that's why I can't decide on how I feel about Overload Script, because I'm not sure if this card's better or this card's better, or you play both. But you can't put too many items into your decks, man. An autosave script, like, do we run this too? When this hits, put it on the bottom of your deck. This seems really good. Like, that seems really good. Like, all 3 of these cards seem really good. I don't know, man. I feel like I want to run all of them, but like in some number. Like maybe this is a sideboard and maybe Megahertz Script is like a always play, and this is like a into fatigue matchups sideboard. I don't know. I feel like everyone's going to try to fatigue Dash and try to fatigue Max, just straight up as the game plan. So this feels like an auto include then. It just seems really interesting. Hyperdriver is, I guess, reprinted here as a common, which is kind of cool. Just the red, just the red. And Hyperdriver seems good in just about everybody. This is like a solid, solid card. I think everyone should play this and pick this up. If you see it circling around, you should probably pick this up in draft, and it's a great sealed card to find because there are cards that just say if you have a Hyperdriver, you win the... No, you don't win the game. You just get bonus points, which is great. Hyper Scrapper is one of those cards that just makes my heart happy because I like weird combos, and I like Rube Goldberg machines. And this is a card that hits for me because it's a blue that is a 3-block and that is an X cost. So if you play this out there, you just have to banish X items from your graveyard. And then the items go into your banish zone. And then when this attacks, it gets plus X. So right now it attacks for 2. But the moment you banish like 2 items, it attacks for 4. And you don't pay for it. It's free. But what happens if you banish 3 hyperdrivers? If you somehow manage to banish 3 hyperdrivers, well, you get 6 resources and this gets go again. And you're attacking for 5 if you banish 3 hyperdrivers. Like, that's stupid. It makes you want to play hyperdrivers. It makes me want to figure out where to put this card. And it's like an always consideration card. Like, I would consider this in every deck until someone proves that it's bad. I don't know. Seems really good. Scrap Trader, also really good. Because you gain 4 resources. You can scrap 2 Evos with this at 0 cost. Scrap 2 Evos, gain 4 resources, instant speed, pay for Teclavoson's effect, and then play a 1-cost Evo. Where's the 1-cost Evo? You could even play a 0-cost Evo out there if you wanted to. There's our 2-cost. I thought there was a 1-cost. No, I was wrong. It's just 0 costs. So you can just go get a 0-cost Evo, just like equip one of these. Heck, you could do this, and you could just straight up gain 2 resources. And then you draw a card off of Teclavoson's effect, drawing into more resources. And then you can basically do it again with the other card you scrapped. So you scrap Evos, you're like in the money, man. This card's really cool. It feels like Payday did, so it could just fall off and not be like good at all. But to me, I don't know. Feels pretty good. Hydraulic Press. Scraps 3 for 6. When this attacks, if you scrapped a card, you get overpower. Scrapping is an additional cost that you can pay, and if you do, you banish an item or an equipment from your graveyard. And if you scrap a card, this is a 6 overpower. This is going to be a great card in Limited, and it might see play as well as a 3 for 6, first of all, but also as a way to just like close games out at the end via overpower. So I like this card a lot. Ratchet Up is a 1 for 5. Can we just talk about that stat line? It's a 1 for 5. Good Lord. Y'all remember back in WTR when we had 1 for 5s in the form of, oh geez, what's the one with the 3 ninjas on it? Why am I blanking on the name? Oh geez, the one that made a Quicken token. Someone help me out. Leave it in a comment below. I'm dangling that right there. The 1 for 5 that makes a Quicken. Like, that was a good card. And Ratchet Up, also good card, because if an item you control has been destroyed this turn, action cards get -1 defense when defending this. So it's even harder to block out. And Galvanized, you can play this defensively because you can destroy an item, which is a very expensive cost, I think. It's very expensive to destroy an item. But in Limited, popping off an item to save your life total is really probably pretty good, because this then blocks for 4 and it's a sink below. And that is quite good. I like Scrap Hopper. This card seems really cool to me. It's a 0 for 3, which scraps, and you build in a Quicken token so you don't have to boost. This is definitely a Limited card that just allows you to not burn through your deck very quickly. But I think this Limited set is going to be really cool because there's going to be games that go really quick, and there's going to be ways to extend the game via cards like Scrap Hopper. And Scrap is just one of those keywords that I feel like really pays you off for playing Evos and other things like that. This set is so cool, man. Soup Up is a 0 for 4 that if you somehow have triggered an item's destruction, then it gains Go again on its own. Even if you don't, though, it's just a 0 for 4. And you know what's good? 0 for 4. Stat lines that are 0 for 4 are good. It also has Galvanize as well. And again, I think Galvanize is going to be very good in Limited, and it may have some play in Classic Constructed, especially if you are someone like Max, who has the capability of fairly easily just giving up like one of his hyperdrivers and giving up some tempo to be able to block a very important on hit like a 0 for 4 with a 0 for 4. And even the blue do that. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is that Galvanize basically turns your blues into 0 for 4s if you're willing to give up an item. Torque tuned, a 2 for 6. That's good. Also, if you have a hyperdriver that blows up on your turn, this gets overpowered. That's very good. And it has Galvanize. That's very, very good. I feel like you'd probably play this in really, you could play this in all of the mechs. Like, this is one of the better cards in the set to me, just because it does like everything. It's like a Swiss Army knife. It's a good attack to have early because it pushes 2 for 6. It's a good attack to have lined up with its destroy an item effect. It gets overpower. You can play this in the late game to try and win the game with overpower, and then you can use it to block. If you give up an item that you control, you get a 0 for 4 block, which is quite good. Cognition Field looks really... Look at the art on Cognition Field. That looks quite cool. That reminds me of like Keyforge art. Shout out to the Keyforge folk out there. This basically just blocks for 3, or it blocks for 5. That's pretty good. Infuse Alloy is underratedly good. This card is underratedly good. Because if you're playing this like kind of back and forth sticky game plan of like your opponent's like grinding you out, this is just a 0 for 4 that you can keep, or it's a 0 for 4 block that you can block with. I feel like this card is a card that I definitely want in Limited in those grindy style games. Speaking of cards I want in Limited, Breezy's card, a 3 for 7 that has Galvanize, so you can either play it as a 3 for 7, or you can play it as a 0 for 4 block. just very good. Now, you're giving up items, so keep that in mind. If you're attacking on the cost of the item in the field, then it does have some value. And giving up tempo, of course, is a big deal, but that's also just pretty solid. Junkyard Dog, a 3 for 6. I feel like I'm playing this card as a scrap effect. I'm playing this card in like constructed level, like teclavoson. Because when this attacks, if it's scrapped a card, it gets +1, so it's a 3 for 7. But it also lets you get an item into your banish, or in this case, get an Evo into your banish, which you can then play for its cost with teclavoson, which is quite solid. And so I like Junkyard Dog, both in the reds and the blues. Scrap Compactor. Okay, all the scrap compactor, scrap harvester, we gotta look at the blues for these, because this combos with Looking for a Scrap. Looking for a Scrap was a card from Outsiders that allowed you to banish a 1 attack card and give Looking for a Scrap +1 and go again. So it came for 5 with go again. And Scrap Compactor is a 0 for 1, and it can scrap a card. And when this attacks, if it's scrapped a card, you can play your next Evo as though it were an instant. Everyone can do that. Every single person can do that, which is really cool. And you can play it from your hand. You can play it just straight up like instant speed. If you're teclavoson, technically you can already play it from banish, but now you can play it at an instant, but you don't have to pay for it at 3 cost. And you can scrap another one attack. Not this guy. You can scrap another one. There it is. 1 attack to do the same sort of effect, and all set up the really cool combo of Looking for a Scrap. And I like those cards. Now this is a 3 block as well. It's a 0 blue, so I feel like this is like super solid. Super duper solid. So is Scrap Harvester. In fact, I included this in like my first build of teclavoson because it's a 3 for 6, which is great. You can scrap your Evos and play them out at instant speed. And you can put counters on items with Crank. Now, I don't know if you really want to do that with teclavoson, but it doesn't matter because it's a 3 for 6 that scraps. And the blue's really good too. It's a 3 for 4 that scraps. Scrap Prospector, same sort of thing as Scrap Compactor, but this one just gains you a resource, which might be useful at instant speed, but probably not nearly as useful as Scrap Compactor. Also, funny spoiler video. You got to watch the spoiler video for that one. Heist is a 2 for 5 boost that pays you off for banishing your items. So if you have items that you've banished out of graveyard, Heist gets them back and for free. I like this card a lot. I think this is a staple in Classic Constructed. I think it sees play heavily going forward. Moonshot is going to be good in Max and then probably not played anywhere else. This one's weird because you have to have boosted. This feels like this sets max velocity. It's double X, so it costs double X and you have to pay into it, but when this attacks, it gets +3 for each hyperdriver destroyed alongside of the X cost. So play this only if you've boosted this turn. As an additional cost to play this, destroy X hyperdrivers. And that's what you're paying into. You give up 2 hyperdrivers. Then that's the double X. Sorry, you give up 2 hyperdrivers. Then you just, wow, my brain exploded for a second. So if you pay 4, you destroy 2 hyperdrivers. Good Lord, my head just went off the rails for a second there. But when you attack, it gets +3 for each hyperdriver you destroyed this way. So that paying 4 for this and destroying 2 hyperdrivers means that you push for 9. But if you can get this to 10, which means like playing a non-attack, like that buffs this up, it gains overpower. So if you can get crazy, destroy 3 hyperdrivers and pay 6 for this, 2 blues, and play out Moonshot, yeah, you can do some stuff because it's going to push for 12 and overpower. Pretty solid. That's pretty solid. I am a fan of that. Steel Street Hoons, not Goons. Hoons. Are we sure that's not supposed to be Goons? Steel Street Goons? Okay. Anyway, boosting 3 cost, 3 attack. Boosting if an item you control has been destroyed this turn, it's up 3 for 5. And galvanizing and block. So this feels pretty solid as well. It's a majestic, so you're not getting a ton of these, but this is a great blue to run. I feel like a lot of mechs are going to run that in blue. Twin Drive. Why do you boost twice? Well, if you're playing max velocity, this card is nuts because on a max velocity turn, you can go like 0 cost boost, Twin Drive for 2, boost, find 2 more resources off of like Foundry Heart. In the money. What is that? That's an 18 damage turn off of Max V Twin Drive and a 0 cost boost that attacks for 3. Card's good. Card's really good. Magnetic Lockwave. Triple X. Target chooses X equipment they control. You choose one of those. The hero must defend your attacks with that equipment if able. So in other words, if you want your opponent to give you the Sophie's Choice where they have to choose all their stuff, you got to pay a bunch into this. But let's just assume that you pay 9 into this. You pay 9, so 3 blues or those 9 resources in general. Then they have to choose 3 equipment. If you pay 6 into this, they have to choose 2 equipment. If you pay 3 into this, they have to choose 1 equipment. So basically this like starts at 1 blue and then they pick what equipment they're going to throw out there. So in that respect, it's probably not great. It's super expensive, but on a blowout turn, like early game, if you find this early game and you have like 3 blues and you can just send an attack out there, like especially with like a weapon, for example, that's a pretty solid little big swing turn. But otherwise, I don't think it's very good. System failure. Remove all steam counters from target equipment, item, or weapon. If 2 or more steam counters are removed, deal 2 damage to the controller. Cost 1. It's an action, and it seems okay. It seems better in limited and then not great in constructed. System reset though. This is where things get crazy. This is the combo with the weapon that we talked about for dash. So banish X mechanologist items you control with cost 0 or 1. Okay, we can do that. So if we pay 3, we can banish 3 mech items. Then return them to the arena under their owner's control, and they refresh their counters. How does this combo? Well, if we banish 3 and then return 3, paying a blue, Symbiosis Shot says whenever a mechanologist item enters the arena under your control, if this weapon has fewer than 6 steam counters, you can put a steam counter on it. So if we blow up by pitching a blue, man, we've talked about a lot of cards. Look at us go. Man, we're really making it. If we banish 3 of them and then bring 3 back, we put 3 counters on our weapon. And if you crank each of those, if they all have crank, like let's just say we banish 3 boom grenades and bring them all back, and then we crank 3 boom grenades, we have 3 action points with which to fire Symbiosis Shot 3 times with those steam counters. If we had the cornucopia, the setup of all setups, and we had somehow 6 items in the field, which is just pie in the sky Neverland. We're never going to do this, but imagine you had 6 items, right? And you paid 2 blues. You banished them all. You brought them all back. You cranked them all. You can swing that weapon 6 times on that turn. Push 12 damage on that turn. That's a combo right there. That's spicy right there. That's a pretty cool card. I like this card, but I am also just one of those pie in the sky players. So for me, the top end is just so alluring. Fabricate is probably a pretty nuts card for exactly teclavoson. It feels like Art of War for teclavoson. It's a 0 cost. It says choose 2. You can equip a base equipment with proto in its name from your inventory, which is fantastic if you've already blocked. So you just go and get, where's our proto? You go and get a proto piece from like what you've already blocked with, which allows you to like just keep going on the stacking up and building up if your opponent's blown you out early or if you needed to give up equipment early. Or your Evo permanents get +1. And I believe the permanence only means the equipment you've already established. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or put this under an Evo permanent you control, which is really good because then that's something that you can feed into the final big guy when you turn into the robot. And then, or you banish an Evo from your hand if you do draw a card. And again, as teclavoson, banishing it from your hand is the same thing almost as banish draw 2 on Art of War because you can still play it. And it replaces it with likely a blue or a red if you're building the deck that way, right? So you either get an attack that you can swing or like something that's good in your hand, or you get a resource card and you turn an Evo from an Evo in your hand into an Evo in your banish zone, which is effectively your hand. This card's nuts. It's really good in Classic Constructed. I think it's going to be a staple in the deck. Now we come to the Hyperdriver Matters section. Well, sort of, because there's a couple of these cards. Then they kind of bounce around in the list, if I remember correctly. It's a Bull Bar, 2 for 5. If you control a Hyperdriver, this gets Overpower. Seems fine in Max and maybe anyone else that you're running a Hyperdriver in. Spring a Leak is a 2 for 5 that when this hits a hero, you take away a steam counter from an equipment or item or weapon. This seems really good in Limited because it could just take the steam counters and blow up your opponent's stuff on the start of their turn. Big Shot is a 3 for 6. If you've boosted 2 or more times this turn, it gets +2. It's a 3 for 8 if you can pay for it. In Max, if you can pay for these things, they're going to be quite good, I think, because it just lets you cap off a big turn. Burn Rubber is so cool. The art on this is so cool. It's a 3 for 5 that says if you've boosted 2 or more times this turn, it gets +2 and can't be defended by equipment. I feel like there's going to be an archetype for Max that's just like play all the cards that mean you can't be defended with equipment and then just try to go for broke. Smash and Grab is a 3 for 5 that gets +2, which is really a 3 for 7. When this hits a hero, gain control of an item they control. That seems like a solid... well, first of all, it could be good in Classic Constructed if mech is just everywhere, but also it just seems like a really solid draft card and limited card. Gigawatt is a 1 cost action that gives +4 to your next mech attack, and that does apply to the weapon. Keep that in mind as well. Your weapon can swing for +4 with this. It's very brute-ish in that respect. Firewall is a block card that blocks for 4 and dances around like having to include defense reactions. And when you block with this, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an Evo, you get to put it on top of your deck. Just leave it there. Otherwise, it goes to the bottom. So in that respect, it kind of has some interesting implications because you could draw into an Evo and it allows you to block even more. 0 to 50 is just funny. It's not as good as 0 to 60. It's a strict downgrade. But 0 to 60, you'll get a ticket for that. So it's just a strict downgrade. Then we have Razzle Dazzle, which is a 1 for 4, and that boosts. And so this is basically 0 to 60, but worse. It's like another version of 0 to 60. Full Tilt is a 2 for 5. This is a downgrade to Zipper Hit because a 1 for 5 was the Zipper Hit stat line. Gas Guzzler is the first time we've seen Mechanologist Lumberjack, which is a cool combination. I'm kind of into that. It's kind of cool looking. He's a 3 for 6 that can boost. It's like it's like a worse version of Throttle. You know, we have like a downgrade on Throttle. Then we go to Crankshaft, which is a reprint from Dynasty, but actually matters now, whereas before, not so much. Now Crankshaft, choice. You want to boost this away so that you can put a Steam counter on a hyperdrive or keep that going as max. I think this is like an auto include perhaps to some degree in max now. Big Bertha, you include just because it's called Big Bertha. It's a popper, another popper, 3 for 6. A popper means it can destroy dragons. That's what we care about. It can't do anything else but pop dragons because Prism doesn't exist. Prism is not a thing. So when this is banished from boosting, you put another Steam counter on your hyperdrivers. Jumpstart's a reprint from Dynasty that also gets cheaper from hyperdrivers being out in play. I said this in a previous video. Jumpstart is a card that is almost free. Because if you have a hyperdriver out there and you've boosted already, you get the hyperdriver resource. And this costs 1 less. So it's a 0 for 5. Does that make sense? Tell me in a comment if that makes sense. Rev Up is really cool, and I want that motorcycle, even though I don't like motorcycles because they're dangerous and they scare me. But it's a 3 for 6, so there's a little bit of existential crisis for you as we go into hour 2 of this long video. Data Link, 0 for 3 with boost when this hits Opt 1. I feel like this is really good. This is like a good dash card, I think. I feel like this plus the little script that gives +1 seems solid. Dive Through Data is also very good. Anything that lets us opt and dig through the deck, I think is like what we want. So I feel like this is a good dash card, Dive Through Data. And it's also not a bad card to just have in general, be able to boost stuff. Sprocket Rocket is a funny name, and that literally, like, is she holding on barely? Oh yeah, she's like barely holding on. Someone pointed out this looks like Moon Girl along with Devil Dinosaur, and now I just can't unsee that. 0 for 3. If you boosted an item or equipment, then this gets +1, which I guess is fine. It doesn't seem as great. Dumpster Dive, if you boost an item or equipment, it gets +1. So again, we're playing around with the stat lines of old boost cards already. Like this is, if you hit this correctly, then it's 0 to 60. If you hit this correctly, then it's Zipper Hit. Expedite is a good card because it's a 0 for 3. When this hits, you can put an item with cost 0 or 1 from your hand. So this basically gives you free item play without having to lose the action point. That is a quite good card, and this is one that probably gets covered up exclusively in Limited. Met-X as well is the same thing. It puts an item 0 or 1 in from your hand into the arena. This also gets covered up. Like, this is a great one. In fact, I feel like this is a staple in Constructed for Dash. And then we come to these cards. I really like these next 2 cards for Max, because I feel like an archetype that you can play is just Outpace and Lay Waste, which both say they can't be defended by equipment. And if you just go super wide and you're like preying on like Guardians and other classes that want to stop you with equipment and then try to swing back with value, this just says no, you can't play that game plan. So you got the 1 for 4 and you've got the 2 for 5 there, which is, I think both are really solid. Fender Bend, and also solid in the equipment meta and the Evo meta as well. Fender Bender, Yuki Lee Fender Bender is what this card is called. If you didn't see, it's really small print on there. But Yuki Lee Fender Bender is a 1 for 4 boost that gets +X, where X is the number of equipment defending it. So this always says your opponent doesn't want to block with equipment. Otherwise, it just it basically looks like a bolt-in attack, because the moment they block with equipment, it goes up, which I guess is kind of fine, but it's pretty cool. I think it's a cool card, and I think it might see some play. Panel Beater has one of the coolest art styles in the set. I think it's a 2 for 5, and it does the same thing as Yuki Lee Fender Bender, but perhaps just not as useful. Underloop is like Overloop, and there's Overloop right there. Underloop says when this hits, put it on the bottom of its owner's deck. Overloop says, when this hits, put it on the bottom of its owner's deck. So there you go. There's more knowledge. I think they're fine. I think they're probably just running these straight up because in a meta where everyone's gonna say, "Cool, I'm just gonna try to not die to your damage and make you run out of cards like you're a ranger." Well, I mean, these might be the silver bullet in that respect. Gas Up is cool because, well, one, it's just cool looking, but also it gives a +4, and you can put a hyperdriver from Banish Zone into the arena. This is a good card for max if you're playing any number of non-attacks. This is one that I would consider playing along with Quick Fire as well because it gets discounted and it gives +4. Personally, I think I'm going Gas Up over Quick Fire, but this could be a 0 for 4 if we think about it, because you could kind of just sit there and cycle to hyperdrivers a turn. Recharge is one of the coolest looking cards in the set as well. It is a 1 for 4 that gives you a hyperdriver for a turn longer, and that's pretty good. That's pretty good. In like draft and limited, I think that's going to be pretty solid as well. Teclonetic Force Field. That's a cool card. Look at just grabbing it, just doing that. When this defends an attack with overpower, gets +2. So this goes to a 5 block. Notice this is another block card. I don't think these are going to see play in constructed, but I could be wrong. Like if you're playing, like you could probably put like the reds into like the sideboard if you're playing like Tree Frog Defense Dash and you're trying to be very block heavy and you want to play around like I don't know, Dominate or effects that don't allow you to play defense reactions, and you don't want to put defense reactions in your deck. This one seems pretty good, but you're probably just running the ones that we talked about up there. Shriek Razors seems decent in Assassin, but I probably just run Flick Knives in a lot of matchups. I just in general, it just feels like a good Flick Knives just feels a little bit more like utility in the late game, but you can just throw this out there as well. And the fact that you can recur this makes a big difference. We might see more recursion going forward. Already Dead is an absolute staple 5 out of 5 card. I mean, it's like one of the best. It's like a 2 for 6 that you swap into with Azuri. You can play it with Arachne. It's a contract card, so you get to do contract things. And it takes away the top card of the deck and a defending card. So if they ever block with equipment and you have attack reactions, they're just blown out. Smashing Performance is a good card, people. This is a good card. It's a 3 for 6. Yeah, it doesn't block. Who cares? But it's a good card, especially in a meta that we might just see a bunch of items. If you're playing items, yeah, sure, it's sad. But if your opponent's playing items, then yeah, you're happy. Tectonic, Rift. Beautiful art. I was going to say, is this Aser Masoa? Yes, it is. She does great work. Very, very big fan of her coloring and like just the overall saturation of her work. But this just creates X Seismic Surge tokens. So if you pitch 3 into this, you get 3 surges. If turn 0, this seems like a fun turn 0 card. If you pitch like all your hand into this, then you can play like the biggest things that you draw into just for free. That seems really fun. Wax Off doesn't seem very good, which tells me maybe we're seeing a ninja set coming down the pipeline over in Mysteria. That might be interesting. But Wax Off, I don't know, man. I do say this. Like, I spoiled a Zen State token all the way back in Crucible of War. That thing might be coming back. I love it. Emboldened Blade is a cool little action that really makes your opponent sad in general. But otherwise, it just is a blue block 3, which is fine. Intoxicating Shot was a really cool spoiler. Whoever made that spoiler is definitely someone that once figured out how to use Adobe After Effects. Sonata Phantasmia. Phantasmia, by the way, is actually how they wrote that. Not Phantasma. It's Phantasmia. Is a double X, and you create X rune chance. If you can pay 12 resources, you make your opponent discard 3 cards at random, which means if you take damage with this in your arsenal and just take everything and keep your 4 blues, your opponent doesn't have a turn and you're playing OTK Vis. Woo! Victory is yours. Contest the Mind Field. Hey, Tome of Imperial Flame is so good. This card's so good. This card's really good. Dust from the Chrome Caverns, also a really solid card, especially in like a matchup where you really want to stick Chrome Eye and just guarantee damage on a turn. Gain 2 action points guaranteed, like Guardian, for example, in that matchup. Seems like this would be a pretty good card. And at the worst, it's a red pitchable block 3 card, which makes it quite good. Warband of Balana is a really beautiful piece of art by Soyame, and it blocks for 2 with Temper. Action 2, destroy it. Next time you attack, you can charge your hero's soul. If a yellow card's charged, you draw a card, so you replace it. Basically, it's just almost like soul neutral, but that's a very good card to have soul neutral. Unfortunately, it does destroy it. So if this were pay 2, like pay a yellow, attack, charge, draw, like replacing the yellow that you paid for this, and you could do that multiple times, be absolutely nuts. But destroying this means you can only do it once, and that is not great. Slay is a card that exists in this set, and I'm not gonna lie, I also don't understand why this was not the card that was spoiled by one Carolina. I don't know. I'm sorry, Carolina. You're probably not watching this at an hour and 30 minutes in, but Slay is definitely a card that I could have seen you spoiling. Nevertheless, I don't know why it exists. Nevertheless, also, when light is made flesh, light too shall bleed. Vincent. It's literally just a Vincent card. But it's funny because she doesn't have to do this. She can just Vincent. I don't know, man. I think it's kind of funny that it's included, though. Maybe this is a hint at something in the future. I like that. Fiendal Spring Tunic is Tunic. Quicken Token looks beautiful and way cool. And then this guy exists. I don't know why he's at the bottom as well, but he's insane. And I think he's really cool. And now a bunch of people want to play as Mech Daddy. Apparently that's what people are calling it. And that's an hour and 30 minutes of cards. Of people talking about cards. If you made it to the end, I want you to type this single word in the comments below. Taco. Just type taco in the comments down below. If you made it to this point, if you did, you have my eternal gratitude for watching an hour and 30 minutes of 90 minutes of me talking about cards and getting it all 100% correct. Not any of my opinions are wrong, because how could they be, right? Isn't that how the world works now? Everything is right all the time? No, I don't know. You tell me in a comment below if you agree with some of my assessments. Do you think Teclo Leveler is lame? I don't know. Tell me in a comment below. Can you make sense of adaptive plating? Is this the most beautiful card we've seen on Flesh and Blood cards ever printed? Tell me in a comment below if you enjoyed the video and you liked, listening to this while you walked your dog or sat on the toilet, or I don't know, it's late. I'm starting to go a little loopy. I don't know, whatever. Cooked dinner, because I do that with fab content sometimes. Make a number go slightly higher. And as always, thanks for watching. Boop.